Okay, in this video I'll be installing the Steeda Tri-Ax short throw shifter in a 2002 Mustang GT. Now this setup is specifically for a Mustang with a TR-3650 transmission. But any Mustang built prior to 2010 with the T-Series transmission will have a similar setup, so the installation will be pretty much the same. Okay, as you can see, the packaging is kind of beat up, and that's because I bought it about 2 months after I bought my car new in 2002. But when I read the instructions, it said it was going to conduct transmission noise into the cabin. And I didn't want to make the car any louder inside than it already was. So I didn't install it, put it in my basement, and forgot about it. And now, about 17 years later, I came across it in my basement again and figured, what the hell, might as well install it. Okay, here you go. It's basically new old stock. As a matter of fact, you can buy the same thing from Steeda right now. In the current version, this part, the main body, is exactly the same. The only differences are, it comes with a rubber gasket. They call it a vibration isolator, but it's just a rubber gasket, and it goes between the shift lever and the shift lever stub. The other difference is the shift lever. In this version, it's solid 304 stainless. In the current version, it's cast aluminum, probably just to save on manufacturing cost. But that's it, just two minor differences between this older version and the current version that you can buy today. Okay, so first step, take your gas shift knob off. It's got a really long thread. Okay, then you just have to take the console off. So just pull back on it. It's just in there with clips. Slide your boot up over your gas shift lever. Disconnect your cigarette lighter connector. Just find the the clip. Press down and pull out. That's it. That's removed. Here is a real vibration isolator. The whole point behind it is it keeps the noise down. It's not that Ford put a cheap lever in the car. It actually costs more. This vibration isolator makes it more expensive. But it gives you a spongy feel. The reason why they put that in was to keep the noise down. That's your real source of sloppy shifter. It stops the noise, but it gives you a rubbery feel because it is rubber. And here you go. If you look here, you should be able to see maybe that you got movement there. You know, you can see this, the rubber flexing. That's what it's supposed to do, and that's you give. But anyway, the next step is to remove the shift lever handle. Let me remove this handle. It's 10mm heads, 8mm 1.25 thread. Okay. And here you go. The bolt pattern is the same. See the bolts. Okay, so you could bolt this on the Steeda shift lever. The thing about it is then you'd still, you'd have a long handle, but you could actually cut this part off and thread this. This is the actual thread here. Looks a little less than ½ inch. It's not ½ inch, and I can use I'll just use a wrench as a quick caliper and just check it. All right, so 7/16 is too small, so it's not, but 12mm fits. So that's a 12mm thread, but the shaft here is thinner. It appears to be thinner. There's a lot of slop in a 12mm wrench there. 7/16 fits. So you could actually cut these threads off, get a 7/16 die, and cut new threads in here, and have a shorter throw shifter, and still have a vibration isolator if that's what if you were getting too much noise. As a matter of fact, you could just keep it if you wanted to improve your stock shifter,
to give you a more solid feel, you could actually remove this vibration isolator and do what I said with the threads, cut them down and bolt it back on, and you know, you'd have a more solid shift and a shorter throw. So just with your stock shift handle without changing anything but this, you know, just modifying this, you know, you could also achieve a short throw shifter. But we're going the whole route. So now the next step is to take your inner boot on. Now there are two inner boots. This is the first inner boot here. It's in there with 4mm bolts, and they have 7mm heads. So let me just get a ratchet for that. There it is. Break them free. And then I'll run them out with my drill. Okay. Screws are all out.
Now I'm at the point that I can remove the actual shift lever assembly, and that's held on by 4 8mm bolts that take a 13mm socket.
So break these free. They're on there tight, but they come free. They're not frozen, just tight. I think they'll come out by hand now. Okay, all bolts are removed. Now, this should come off, but it might need a little persuasion because it probably sealed there with RTV. It's on there pretty good. So I got to get it off, and I'll get a little mini crowbar. Okay, a little mini crowbar. See if I can get that in here anywhere. All right, not high enough. I got the transmission here, I got there. I don't got enough height. I could get it in, I could lever it, but no height there. Let's see if I can just hook it here and pull straight up. There you go. Okay. It's out. Now, you'll see it has a plastic bushing. Now, hopefully yours will be in good, hopefully it's in good shape. You snap it off. Okay, it just snaps off. There you go. Mine is in good shape.
If you got any doubts that yours might not be in good shape, order yourself one ahead of time, because the Steeda shifter does not come with this bushing.
Chances are it's going to be good. I mean, this car is 17 years old, has 150,000 miles on it, and this thing looks pristine. So,
really just something to be aware of. The next step is to clean the mating surface on the transmission for your shifter.
You don't want to get any dirt in it, so you take a rag, and make sure you got a clean rag. This rag is pretty clean, and put a rag there, and then you know, clean your surface. Now, I'm going to clean mine up off camera because, you know, it's pretty boring watching me scrub flange. So when I'm done cleaning up, I'll be right back.
Okay, as you can see, the flange is nice and clean. And it's important you clean it well, because you don't want any residual silicone left behind, because silicone does not stick to silicone. And I also cleaned and chased the threads. Now, a lot of guys might consider that to be overkill, and they could be right. But I have two reasons that I did that for. Number one, clean and chase threads will give you a more consistent clamping force at any given torque, which in turn will give you a more even and consistent seal. Number two, I'll be using Loctite. and Loctite works much better if the threads are clean. And since I've already done it off camera, I'll just take you through the key points of the process.
I ran a tap. 8mm, 1.25 pitch, that's the thread, tap, into each one of these holes. Alright, so I ran the tap down, and ran it out. Had a little oil on the tap at the time, alright, all 4 holes. And when I was doing that, alright, I took a rag, you could see this hole, and I made sure I held that rag in tight, alright, and ran the tap in and out. Then after I did that, I squirted some brake cleaning fluid in there, and then while holding the rag really tight against this so nothing will get in, I blew it out. But anyway, all ready now for the gasket sealer. You want to put a very thin bead of gasket sealer on here because you don't want any gasket sealer to squeeze out and go into your transmission. That would be a bad thing. So let me get some RTV. You could use the black stuff. I'm going to use the ultra copper because that's what I got. Now it would be better if I had that little nozzle that comes with it. I don't, because I really want to just get a thin bead on here. Get a thin bead, only about 1/8 of an inch. Gotta get it going. This gasket seal is a little bit plugged up. It tends to kick at the very top. Okay, I'm going to apply the gasket sealer and then be back on camera. Okay, I applied the silicone. Now, should be able to see that I stayed to the outer edges because I don't want any silicone to drip in there. And I put a thin layer on, and if you go with like a popsicle stick, sand it flat, give yourself a little chamfer on it. You got like a little scraper, a mini scraper, and you can actually take that and clean off any silicone if it's too close to the edge. You know, so I kept about 1/8 of an inch away with a very thin layer. That's all you need.
A thin narrow bead close to the outside edge is more than adequate to seal it, while at the same time ensuring there's no excess to drip into the transmission. I'm just about ready to install the shifter. I just need to press the stock plastic bushing onto the ball end of the new shift lever.
You don't need to put any lube on the ball because it's plastic. Lube won't really do much for it. So I pulled it back out. I had it there for safekeeping. And you're going to snap it on to the ball of the shifter. So the ball seems to be a little bigger than the stock shifter. There you go. Snapped on. So she's good to go.
Before you place it on transmission, you want to make sure it's in its proper orientation, which might be counterintuitive because the lettering might be upside down, as it is in this case. Just know that the longest side of the flange will go towards the front of the car. And of course, as you're putting it into place, make sure the plastic bushing goes into the cup on the transmission linkage.
Okay.
Now, because the flange of the new shifter is much thicker than that of the stock shifter, you need to use longer mounting bolts, and they come with the new shifter.
Pretty strong plastic. Okay.
The bolts they supply are stainless steel, but there's no advantage to them because they're not subject to corrosion. Overall, it's actually a negative, since they needlessly add to the cost of the shifter, but it is what it is. I'll coat all the bolts with Loctite for 2 reasons. The main reason is steel and aluminum react, even stainless steel. And the Loctite will serve to minimize the galvanic reaction between the two. The secondary reason, although not as critical because I'll be torquing them to spec, is the added insurance Loctite gives against them loosening up. After all the bolts are in, I'll snug them up evenly, but not tight, being sure to keep them well below the specified torque. Now that that's done, I'll let the RTV set up for half an hour, and then come back and tighten them to their final torque. By the way, anytime you use RTV, silicone gasket maker, this is the procedure you should follow to get optimum results. Alright, I waited half an hour. Now I can tighten them down to their final torque, which is 17 foot-pounds. And although it's not super critical in this application, It's always good practice to tighten them in a crosstalk pattern, which basically means to tighten them in an X pattern.
Okay, it's torqued down, all ready to go. Now, the next step is to adjust your stops. Okay, so the next step is you shift it into second, actually third. Put in third, and then adjust the stop stop bolt until it just touches the gear shift lever. Just comes in contact with it. Then they say to back it off about a quarter to a half turn, so that you have about 0.02 air gap. It seems to be pretty approximate there. They're not giving you anything exact, so there's no reason to whip out your failure gauge. Everything is approximate. It's about a 0.02 air gap, about a quarter to a half a turn. So, and then what they go on to tell you is that when you shift it, it shouldn't, the stops should not interfere. It shouldn't hit the stops when you shift. But when you're in second or third, if you pull hard on the hard on the lever, you can make it touch the stop. So that's the deal. So I have it just touching. I'm going to put the wrench on it. Get it this way. And I'm going to give it, if I can get the wrench to stay, can't even do it. I'm going to count the flats because the wrench, the open end wrench, I can't really go very far. So I'll get it back to where it was. So
I'll back it up 3 flats, and since it's a hex head bolt, that'll be exactly 1/2 turn. And because it's a 5/16 18 bolt, it has 18 threads per inch, making half a turn 1/36 of an inch, or 0.028 inches. And that'll put the air gap at the higher limit of the given approximate range. But that's what I want, because I don't want to risk any possibility of under-engagement of the gears. Once it's at its proper position, hold the head of the bolt so it can turn, and securely tighten the jam nut to lock it in.
And now I'm going to put it in. That was third. This is actually fourth. They say to put in the second. Let me see. I don't see why that would matter. Matter of fact, it looks to me fourth would be better, because fourth is straight back. So I'm going to put in fourth instead of second to adjust the rear stop bolt.
And I'll just fast forward through this because the procedure is identical to the front stop bolt.
Okay, now what they say after you do that is to run it through all your gears and ensure that it goes into all the gears without any interference from the stops. It should be able to freely go into all 6 gears, 5, 4, 1 through 5, and reverse without any problems. Or to do that, I'm going to have to go to the other side because first and reverse, it's hard, won't want to shift into first and reverse if I don't press the clutch. It's hard on the synchros. The synchros are going to fight you. It's not good for the synchros either. I might block the view a little bit, I don't know, but here we go. I'll try not to. Get in the car, press down on the clutch. Okay. First, it's not hitting the stop. Second, third, fourth, reverse. Fifth, and then reverse. So everything seems fine. And that's that. So I'm not hitting stops. I'm able to shift into all my gears without any problem. Everything should be good.
Next step
Would be They give you a big washer. Here it is. You got a big wash, you slide that down, and that prevents the this inner boot that you're going to put back on from getting caught up in the works there. Then you got your handle and some lock washers, stainless steel, and 2 bolts. You don't need any nuts because these holes are tapped. And these bolts appear to be graded. I don't think these are stainless steel. They don't look like stainless. The washers look like stainless. So you have 2 positions. Here, if you want extra short, or here if you want about normal. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about Loctite or Never-Seez because this really is not subject to any kind of corrosion. It's up inside the car. And it's got lock washers, so that'll cover the vibration. And these bolts, I'll tighten them down to 27 foot-pounds because that's what the spec is according to Ford. And I'm going with the really short throw. Let's see if I got my torque wrench here available. Yeah, I do. Okay. I'll set it for 28 foot-pounds and torque these guys down. Okay, she's torqued in.
Now all that's left is to put everything back together reusing the original parts. You know, the inner boots, the outer boot, the console insert, and the shifter knob. However, when I went online to look up the torque value for the bolts for the outer inner boot, I came across a very convincing argument against using the shift stops on any Tremec T-Series transmission. So convincing, in fact, that I'm going to go ahead and remove those shift stops that I just showed you how to adjust. And I'll explain why I think that's the right thing to do. Number 1, all Tremec transmissions have internal shift stops. And in the case of the TR-3650, the shift stops are on the guide rails. Number 2, the factory shifter doesn't have any shift stops. And this transmission has over 150,000 miles on it, and I've never had any shifting issues. Number 3, a short throw shifter has less leverage, less mechanical advantage than a stock shifter. So even if you get a little carried away and shift it hard and bang it into the gears, it's going to bang into the gears with less impact than it would with a stock shifter. So these extra shift stops on a shifter are pointless.
The only thing they can possibly do is cause a problem. At best, they won't be an issue, but at worst, they could cause a problem. So there's no point in having them in there. I'm going to take them out. Okay, so they're out. That's taken care of. Now, I don't like I now have 2 holes because oil does come up in here. And here's the proof of the pudding here. All right, look how greasy that thing is. That's transmission oil that has come up and mixed with dirt and whatnot, I guess. But there you go.
So I'll have to come up with some sort of plugs. Okay, I got some 5/16 18 by 3/8 bolts, and they'll work perfectly well to plug the holes. I'll just apply some RTV on the threads, thread them in the holes, and tighten them down.
Okay, so now the stops are taken care of. But now I got to take this handle off again because I want to put that rubber boot on.
The only reason I'm taking this handle off that I just installed is in hopes that it will make it easier to install this inner boot.
Okay, take that off. Now I'm going to put the boot on. Now it's a pretty warm day today, so let's hope the boot can stretch. It's got to stretch a lot. This washer here is to hold the boot up. Now, so it doesn't interfere with these up. Now I gotta try to get this boot to stretch over this whole thing. That might be easier said than done, but let's try it from. Oh, actually, you know what? I was wrong. This is a very stretchy boot. It went on there very easily, without a hassle. We're good. The boot's on there. That's your little inner boot. It fits on there nicely. Yeah, nice. Okay, so that boot, there's no problem getting that inner boot on. It goes on easy.
The reason I thought it was going to be tough to put on is because the Steeda shifter body is quite a bit bigger.
But also because in the instructions, they were telling you, well, you could put the inner boot on if you really stretch it over. You know, they're acting like it was hard to get it stretched over this. But it went on real easy. So that's good. So I got my inner boot on, my inner boot, and I got another boot that goes on. The primary inner boot. The one with that was a little mangled up.
So here's the other inner boot, which gets installed on top of the first inner boot that I just installed. And as you can see, I cleaned it up a bit and straightened out the flange. I also replaced the factory foam gasket, which was deteriorated and ripped, with 3/8 wide by 1/8 inch thick self-adhesive foam weather stripping. I'll admit I probably went a little overboard with the foam weather stripping. The rubber boot probably would have made a good enough seal without it, but now I have the equivalent to how it came from the factory.
All right, let's get this in there now. Gotta tilt it back, and wiggle it underneath the plastic. Gotta get my cigarette lighter connector. Okay, that's important. Don't want to lose that connector. Cigarette lighter is the most important accessory in the car, at least to me. All right, come on. Now, wiggle it in place. Okay, we see real good. Now I just got to get the bolts. Okay, here they are, all four. Yeah, all four. Okay.
And of course you want to make sure you start all the bolts by hand to eliminate any chance of cross-threading. That'll chuck up a 1/4 inch extension with a 7mm socket and run it down with the drill.
Okay, so I got the clutch set. I don't even trust the clutch. Remember, it's only going to be 7.5 foot-pounds. Okay, went the clutch hit that time. And we'll talk them down. 7.5 foot-pounds. You know what? I don't care what Ford says. It keeps on going. I'm going to go 5 foot-pounds. Sometimes you just got to use feel. Right, that one did. See, 5 foot. And 5 foot's all I'm going to give them. That's all they need. Okay, they're all talked down to 5 foot-pounds. And that's all they need to be. They're not coming free. Okay, that's all set up.
Now I just have to put the shift handle back on. And I'll just fast forward through it because I already did that before.
30 foot-pounds. Talk down. Okay, she's good. So that's torqued in.
All that's left to do is to install the console center insert and boot and shift it up. And of course, be sure to reconnect your cigarette lighter connector before you install the center console insert.
This part is a real easy removal and installation. It just goes in like that. There, get it down in there. And lightly tap him in place. And it's installed.
Last thing is the shift knob. This round chrome aftermarket knob would be nice, but it's missing a threaded insert and it's got the wrong shift pattern. So for now, I'll just have to put this worn out, big, bulky, stock shifter knob back on. Now to test it out, I'll move over to the driver's seat so I can press down on the clutch. Because it's not good for the synchros to shift without the clutch, even when the engine's not running.
Basically, right now the input shaft is prevented from turning because it's engaged to the engine. So you press the clutch, that allows your synchros to move freely, so it will shift nice. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, reverse. Nice. It does feel a lot more solid and a lot more precise. I mean, I never really had any trouble with the stock shifter. I mean, I could shift any car and shift any car fast, but it definitely does feel like a nice and more sure shifter. So, seems good.